So hi Claire, welcome. I'm sorry about Facebook not working.
Oh, the joys of technology. And let me just tell you that my computer, since Zoom has updated, suddenly decides that the picture will go flickery. So if that happens, to save you all the disco that potentially comes on, I'll just put my picture back on and then I'll go back onto this camera and it sort of just does a 5-second fandango. So
Absolutely.
bear with us for the tech. But otherwise, I can't show you the app. So,
The thing is, it's really about it's what content you bring in. So as lovely as it is to see your face, I fully appreciate that. We want to hear from you as well. So um we've obviously had a little chat before, haven't we, Claire, about what you do. Many of the things that we talked about resonated with me because of the work I do with settings. And I'll be honest, my experience with the youngest of children is lacking a little bit, but you seem like a fountain of knowledge. And I felt like I wanted to share you with the world, which is why we're doing this.
thank
So
you.
would you like to introduce yourself? Talk about what you do and sort of where it came from.
Yes, sure. So, hello, everybody. It's delicious to see you. And if you're here at this time of night, good for you. If you're here in the day, lovely to see you as well. And thank you for giving me your time. It's really lovely to see you. So, I'm a infant teacher, and that was literally on my classroom door in New Zealand. And I had to take it when it was offered. I had to take it. I'm trained at a really random age. I'm trained from 3 to 8, and I don't think there's many people that have that sort of strange key stage age range, but it crosses all of the key stages. And I've taught all the way up into year 6 and up into secondary as well, a little bit, not a lot. But I've also taught down in nursery, and I. I struggled through school, and when I got to be a teacher, it was through passion that I became a teacher and sheer hard determination to pass the wretched exams to get there. But I knew if I got there, I was going to be a good teacher because I understood what failure was like. And failure is rubbish, if we're really honest. And so when I was in the classroom, one of the things that really made me sort of stand up and take note was the amount of children who were arriving and not thriving, but equally the amount of children who arrived and did thrive. And I take the special needs children aside one moment and think about the sort of the remainder of the class. And my thought processes were, what was the difference? What makes the difference between a child who arrives and thrives and a child who doesn't? And at the end of my teaching career, I was teaching in year 4, and I noticed that the children who were arriving and not thriving also tended to have parents who stood aside in the playground. They were the ones on their own. They were the parent of that child. They were the ones whose child wasn't invited to the birthday parties. And there was this sort of whole big sort of feeling about the whole thing. And so that sort of drove me to want to do something to solve the problem. And I taught in England in a number of different schools, in a number of different settings, ranging all the way up. And then I became an education researcher, and and I'd also worked in New Zealand by this stage. I became an education researcher working with the top 5% of schools in England and Wales. And at the time, we were all on the gifted and talented track. We were meant to be pushing these amazing, brilliant children. Unfortunately, everything I created in the research department seemed to support the lower end children and supported them to confidence and success through nurture and encouragement. And then, but I also found in these really high flying schools that we were using to show the government what best practice should be and what we would, design the new curricula. There were still these kids who were arriving and not thriving. And then I met a man on a plane who wanted to change the way education took place in Africa, as you do. And he told me what he was going to do. And I clearly shouldn't play poker because he said, you wouldn't do it that way, would you? And I sort of explained what he said, what would you do? So I explained, and he said, well, here's loads of money, come and make it happen for me. And so I then put the whole of primary education on a tablet for African kids to get high standard education in their own language in every subject for every day of every lesson of every day of their school career in primary. It was 12,000 lesson plans and 5,000 pieces of interactive learning content in 9 languages. And one of those languages was an oral language, so we had to stabilize it, so we had to write the dictionary so we could then translate it. But what I found was, even in changing the entire way these kids were learning, you still had a group of kids who were arriving and not thriving. So it made me realize that it was a thing. And so I then went on a journey to try and find out why and what was it all about and what could we do to change it. And then somebody, I'm going to be back in a second, because of course it's a little bit like the staple gun when you're doing the backing on the, always in the wrong place. And then somebody showed me this graph.
Oh yeah.
That graph, I don't know if you've seen it before, but this is the brain development, the learning that's happening in the first 1,000 days of life. That's the time from conception to. So what we've got, right side, is before birth, your baby is beginning to learn. In that first year, the brain development is going absolutely bonkers. By the time they're 2, it's at its peak, and then it slowly is coming down, and it flatlines until they're about 26. And the brain isn't fully developed until the child is 26. So we have this amazing, unique, wonderful opportunity in our settings to impact our children's life outcomes. Like, it's huge. But the people that spend 80% of the time with their children are the parents, who are not trained, who have been taught how to give birth and supported through that, and then left. And you guys, as early years practitioners, are the first people, first professionals to be there as a supporter and a guider and a nurturer of the parents, to help the parents help their children to thrive. Because even if the babies are with you for full time, they're with their parents 80% of their time. So that's why I decided that we need to support parents, but when we as professionals have a role to play in that. And so I then built the Aliki app to support parents in their journey in this first 1,000 days. So from the first day of conception right the way up until the baby is 2. But, and I will stop in a minute, I promise. One of the things I hadn't realised was that actually, when I built it, I thought I was building a school readiness app, because that was the cry that everybody was saying. What I discovered was, actually, according to the researchers, you can't say it's a school readiness app, because it stops at 2 and school starts at 5. So there's too much of a gap in between. So when we looked at the research, what we found was it's just being published in a peer-reviewed journal. What we found was that the app was significantly increasing parental self-efficacy. That is my belief in myself as a parent. And what we know is, when you have high parental self-efficacy, you have low postnatal depression, low infant mental health issues, which is our social emotional needs that we're all trying to sort of get to grips with, and you get high home learning environments. We know when we have high home learning environments, outcomes are really good. So the app that I thought I'd built, I didn't build. And then what I found was that actually practitioners were finding that they were learning loads and they were being upskilled by using the app. So suddenly what I thought I'd built, well, we can bin that, because it so wasn't. I've built something completely different to what I thought I'd built, but the outcomes are the same, in that we end up with having confident parents, and confident parents help create confident children. And confident practitioners know how to further learning and how to instill that passion and love and excitement in our children that we really want to nurture in these early days, when everything is firing off at all. I don't know if that's a word.
Honestly, for a minute, like I'm similarly trained to you. So I'm trained 3 to 7 year olds. When I first started my degree, it was 3 to 8, but then we had a meeting in the second year where they just like knocked a year off for everyone. So I do understand it, and for me, my background's always been to work with 2+, and I think it's because I mean, Apologies, Siren. But I think it's because 2+ has now become sort of typical school age for some schools, not all, but it's because I'm from the school sector. So to me, under 2s is just it's an element of mystery. I mean, I understand how children develop at that early age in terms of the journey to creativity, to these parts play, and how to support them. But it's such a huge area, and like you say on that graph, there is so much going on in their brains, and you've obviously put together this amazing app to support parents and practitioners, and these practitioners are getting a lot from it. Even the highly skilled ones who already know lots are still learning a lot from it. So what is in the app that people are pulling out?
Shall I walk you through it?
Go
and then
for
you
it.
can see why it's a bit different.
Yes.
So remember, I come from an education research background. So for me, this was utter bliss. I spent 2 years deep in research. I loved every second. I didn't speak to anyone, which is not my happy place, I might add. I love speaking to people, but deep in research, going to my colleague who was also working on it, going, oh, guess what we found out today? And we were like, all these facts flying around. It was really exciting. So basically what you get is a tiny activity. You basically put in the age of your child. This is obviously a home one, so it's a bath one, but it could be in outside, set in the area, you know, in outside in the garden or whatever. And this is a tiny, and they are tiny activities. It's kind of not about the activities. So the activity is about pouring. It tells them what to do. Now, some parents, that's as far as they go. They just think, oh yeah, great, I'm doing pouring. But the next bit is key. It's the why you're doing it. And that why, for some parents who read that far, it literally gives them the light bulb of, oh, so they do more. So what I've done is I've unpicked the learning that's happening by doing pouring. Some of it, not all of it, just the odd bit. Then you get the how to do it. Now, a lot of parents who are not the main carer are very, very happy by the how to do it, because this is the confidence boost. This is the bit that says, follow the instructions and it will happen. The resources is anything that you find from home. There's nothing that I don't think there's any dyed pasta. I don't think there's any tough trays. I don't think there's any, well, there's, you know, it's all stuff that you're going to find in and around your home. You can pull out of the cupboards or you would have in the nursery. And then this is the exciting bit, the science and the research behind the activity that you are doing in the day. And then at the bottom is links to the academic papers or to a YouTube video or a blog that was based on an academic paper. And then when you finished it, this would have been blue if you'd never done it before. You press finish, and then you get the other areas of learning that you have developed by doing it.
Amazing.
Then you press done, and then this is this week's activities based on the age of the child. And then you can do it by subject area. Now that's the EYFS areas, but I've also added in sensory because it's so important. And the more I learn about primitive reflexes and sound and vision development, the more I'm realizing we are underworking those senses, guys. We need to do more. And you can do it from age, and it starts from the very first day of conception and goes right through until 2. I tell you, that was a real challenge to come up with something, but it is a good one. It's all about your amazing journey that you are about to go on and the brain development that happens through the baby's development. You can then favourite the ones you like and then get ready for the exciting bit. At the back, you get your brain buckets that fill up over time. So it's incredibly simple, but the content is deep thinking content. On the top surface, you can look at it and go, yeah, that's simple. I'm already doing that. But when parents discover that on a bad day and all they've done is sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, which normally they wouldn't have even noticed was an activity, when they know that they've done rhythm and rhyme, they've done language and context, they've done, music, they have done movement, gross movement, they've done fine movement, they've done vision because they've done tracking with lights, they've helped make their child better at maths. Suddenly, as a parent, you think, check me, I'm a goddess.
Yeah.
And you had not thought that you'd done anything in a day. And what happens is, because parents think they've had a tiny success, they do it again. And because they do it again, the kiddies get more neurological development. And we know that during this period of time, there are a million synapses a second being developed. And it is busy in there. And we know that babies learn from experience. And it's the experiences we give them, not the fancy experiences. It's the tiny moments, the nappy changing moments, that become the fundamental building blocks of life. And what we also know is that the first 1,000 days, the time from conception to 2, impacts, God bless Kate Middleton, I mean, it was very nice of her, but it impacts the every part of life, including, you know, your health, your mental health, your physical health, social and emotional, who you're going to marry, how much you earn. It's sort of, and your academic outcomes. And we know that your academic outcomes, your development levels at 22 months old are good predictors of how successful you'll be at 26 years, where you'll be at 26 years. So it's a fundamental period of time. And we have that in our hands to nurture and develop and support and build the passion that these children are going to take into the world. And what a privilege. What a privilege.
Absolutely. What I love about what was on the screen there is you backed it up with explanation about it wasn't just a have you tried doing X, Y, and Z and off you go into the world with no explanation, because I think some parents hear these activities and they feel quite patronized, like, oh, I'm going to splash in the puddles today. Don't get me wrong, it's a brilliant activity, but I think a lot of parents, because they don't understand the why behind it, you know, I'm really big on why. If they don't understand the why behind it, then they're not going to follow through. They're not going to make connections between experiences, and they're probably not going to return to it, are they? And I also love that you've got the science in there as well, which for me as a practitioner, I get very excited when people send me research papers, because I'm like, I've not seen this one, give it to me. And I'm in bed at like midnight reading on my iPad. It's really exciting. And I suppose, you know, parents might not want to look that stuff up, but practitioners might. And actually some parents I know would be inclined, because actually it might rub up against what they thought was best practice, but actually we've got some evidence here that might be different to how you were raised as a child. Here's something new to look at, and it can inform them as new parents. I've got some friends in my life who are new parents, and they're both in education. One's a lecturer, one's a teacher. They're wonderful people, but every so often you see on their faces that kind of worry of, am I doing the right thing here? And actually just being able to back it up with a little bit of research. If you are working as a parent in isolation, you know, I'm not a parent myself. I can help from an education point of view, but little 6-month Harry, I don't know why he's making that sound. I don't know. Let's do something. Let's enter, you know, some source of information, and that's what the app is, isn't it?
It's fascinating stuff. I mean, one of the ones that blew my mind was that between 10 and 12 months old, babies take, you know how we talk to babies in that what we used to call motherese then became parentese, and now it's something else. I don't even know what it's called. But the whole sing-songy kind of a way. Apparently, we do that to slow the vowels down. And so we go, hello, baby, which slows the vowels down. The reason we do that is because between 10 and 12 months, the baby's been born a child of the world. They could speak any language when they're born, but at 10 and 12 months old, they start taking statistical analysis of the vowels they hear and binning the ones they don't need. Like, wow.
It's amazing,
so
isn't it?
Does that not make you want to do more? Like,
yeah.
And some new research came out yesterday, which I need to add in actually, that, you know, we've got this language deficit in schools. And we thought that it was a gender-biased language. We didn't speak to boys and we spoke to girls. Girls sat and did colouring, boys went and did climbing. Boys were too busy to be spoken to. It's not. It's that parents speak less to non-speaking children. So they start speaking when the baby is speaking back to them.
Right.
But one of the feedbacks I've had about the app is parents saying, oh, I did loads more of things I didn't think I needed to do until later earlier. So the first activity in the world, one of the activities when you're pregnant is to make a black and white book. Hold on, I'll grab it here. So you make a black and white book. So, you know, there's a black and white book, as simple as you like.
Yeah.
And it's just a piece of paper, and I've drawn on it with a Sharpie, not very well. And you take that to hospital in your hospital bag, and then you read to your baby on their very first day in the world the book that you made. And how lovely is that? No one can take that away from you. Special moment for you and your baby. But what does that say? That says we care about books, and we're bringing that in, and that's day number one. If you're up for it, and if you're not up for it, doesn't matter. So it's that sort of, but equally, isn't that a nice thing to do in the nursery? Get the big kids in the nursery to make the babies a book. Oh, how special is that? And then they come down and read the books to the babies. Like delicious. So I think there's some sort of, none of it's hard, none of it costs money, and I'm all about the not costing money thing. And making use of what we've got around the place, and making best practice from a focus of development first. So what do we need? What are we watching? Focused on development and making it play based, and letting the children really be the reason that we're doing what we're doing, and it's focused on where that child is today.
Lovely. So I'm sold. So what's the next step? So if someone's watched this thinking this is amazing, fantastic, I've already looked at the App Store, what do I do now? What do people do now? What's the next step?
So there's well, obviously you can download the app. It's free for 7 days. Take a look, download it, and hopefully I'll have less tech failure than I had this afternoon when I sent out my newsletter with a broken link. You know, it's been a day of tech failure. Yes, go download it. It's in the app stores, and have a little look around. If you are in Australia or New Zealand and on the other side of the world, apparently there's a challenge with getting into it on Android. It's just been fixed in Apple, but there's something with times, I don't know, but it's coming. If you can't get into it, bear with me, I apologize. It was a new find. So go and have a play. If you like what you see and you want to know more, just send me a DM on any of the socials except Twitter. Possibly stay away from Twitter. It's my least favorite place. But LinkedIn is my happy place. Or they can do hello at a leaky or Clare at a leaky, but the chances of spelling that right is always challenging. But it's Clare without an I at aleaky.com. And you can drop me a message or drop me a LinkedIn or whatever and say hi, and we can just have a natter and see what you want to do. And if it's your sort of cup of tea, you can give it a go. We can talk about it. I can go through it with you. I also do baby room training as well, if people are interested in that.
That would be amazing. I have to say, that is the one area that I'm asked to deliver training on that I say no, because my background is not in that area, and we know how important it is to get that right. But that's amazing. Lovely. I think, Claire, so I'm going to put this on my socials. I'm the same. I don't have Twitter anymore, so it won't go on there. I'll put it on my socials. I'll put the links to your socials underneath as well.
Amazing.
And then I'm going to send this out on my emails for my mailing list as well. And I'm going to ask them if I'm going to ask you if I can put your email address and things on there, so what any information I can put on to get in touch, because I think people just need to follow you as well. Even if they access the app, it's having that connection to you, I think, could be really useful.
Yeah, and on things like, well, it's interesting. I thought I used to like Facebook, but I'm actually more erring towards Instagram and LinkedIn. But on my socials as well, it's quite a nice one. If you don't want to do anything more, you can go and find, there's lots of little activities here where I would just describe a tiny little activity, and they've all got the yellow bit around them, and it'll say a toddler activity or a pregnancy activity or whatever, and they sort of are in the feed, and you can have a rummage and play. But your best, if you want to have a show and interest, have a look at the app, download it and play. You've got 7 days to do it.
Fantastic. Okay, Claire, we'll bring this to a close. Thank you so much. Have you got any last minute things you want to say to anyone?
You're gorgeous and you're doing an amazing job, and well done for being sparkly. And if anyone in your nursery says they just work in the nursery, in the baby room, please get them to take the just out.
Amazing. Thanks, Claire.
Thanks for having me.